Yes, we are live. Thank you, thank you, thank you once again for tuning in to Mothers Unfiltered. I'm so happy for everyone that's tuning in now, in the future, midway. Just thank you so much. Definitely we have lots to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest as soon as Ty spills some of that knowledge of hers.
It was a deep conversation, but my quick little spiel. Go to YouTube, Mothers Unfiltered, subscribe, like, share if you love what we do. We see our numbers going up. Thank you. We love every single one of you guys. If there's any topics that you want us to talk about, any different interests, just let us know. You could email us at mothersunfiltered2020@gmail.com or put it in one of the posts, and I'm done.
Yeah, thank you once again. So today's topic is about education, and I remember my daughter mentioning to me, she's like, "Mom, can you please talk about the education system?" And I was like, "Okay." And within saying that, she was like, "Well, we always hear from the kids' perspectives, especially they go home and tell mom and dad, but we never hear the teachers' grievances, the pros and the cons, and these things." So I was like, "That's a great topic." So I want to introduce everybody to Miss Kathy Green Wingfield. She's been an educator for the past 30 years, previously worked in Miami-Dade County Public Schools as a special education teacher prior to moving to Georgia. Currently, she teaches students with autism spectrum. And I want to apologize because on the actual flyer, it said New York. So that is my fault, everybody. But even though I put New York there, she has so many years of knowledge to enlighten us with. I am going off the first question by saying that the United States of America ranks 27th, the 27th place in reference to education in the world. And I know as Americans, we're always like, we're number one, but the 27th is not, no, it's very far on the totem pole. Within saying that, why do you think we're so below standards when it comes to education?
In my opinion, I think that the United States is so low when it comes to their education standards because just throughout the country and even within a state, everybody or many districts are doing something different. So, for example, I'm in the metro Atlanta area where there are so many districts, but we're all using different programs. Our system is run completely different. And having been in education for so long, first in Florida and then in Georgia, and then even now I go to so many trainings, I have so many certifications. There's nothing really new under the sun. A lot of times it's the same old wine, they're putting it in a different bottle. But when we moved away from the basics, the reading, writing, and arithmetic in education, and then, it became really a part of people's finance. They made a lot of money off of these programs. That's when we got away from the basics, the reading, the writing, and arithmetic. And as a result, our kids are suffering. They're not learning at the levels that they should be, and that we really need to be able to compete, in a global society.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you, because I have another question, Ty, so I don't want to interrupt if you was going to have a question. You have a question?
Oh,
I can hear you, Ty. You're fine. Miss Kathy, can you hear Miss Ty?
I can't hear her.
I can't hear. It's freezing up.
Yeah, you're fine, but Ty is freezing.
Oh, okay. I can hear you now. Are you okay, Ty?
Yeah, I guess I'm okay.
I can hear Ty now.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to basically just ask, let's get it out with it before we even, develop everything. COVID. We talk about it almost every type of podcast. How are the teachers? How are you dealing with COVID? Because that's a completely different way of learning everything now. Majority of things are virtual. I had somebody ask me like, how can a kindergarten learn how to write their ABCs on the computer? Of course, there's a will, there's a way, but how are you dealing with it?
So I have been out of my school building since March, and I have not, we haven't returned yet. I'm scheduled to return in October. So right now I am teaching virtually. So because I teach students on the spectrum, Some of my students are able to engage daily, virtually, but then I have some who they cannot because their parents are working and they need support. Some of my students will not sit in front of the computer, independently and follow along. They need support and they have parents who work every day. So it's just not working for them. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that I am anxious to get back into the building so that I can provide the services that my students need. Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What do you think parents can do to help and support the teachers in this new way of operating?
Well, with my parents, and I have good relationships with my parents. So the parents who are able to support my students, they do that. If they're home and can support them, they do that. But then I respect the ones who have to work. They have to survive. They have bills to pay. They cannot be at home all day. So as a result, I send supplemental assignments that when the parent can, fit it into their schedule, they'll work with the student independently at home, or a sibling may work with them, another relative, if at all possible.
Wow.
But at this point, I've had to respect each parent's situation because they're different.
Right. And I like what you're saying, that you're able to view them as their own individual household. They have their own processes, their own way of operating, and you're able to identify that and work with it, versus having a set system of this is how you deal with every single family, because we know it doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And
what else? I guess my other question is it freezing? Are we still freezing, or is it me?
You're good now.
You're good now.
Is it me again? Are you able to see what it's doing to the kids' mental and emotional health?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, my students who rejoined virtually in August, we started at the end of August, they've really adjusted and adapted very well, to my surprise, because I have students who I had never met in person, only virtually. So these students have really adapted well. I am so proud of them. I tell them all the time, the parents have been great. They've adjusted. And I don't know if that's part of it because they use technology all the time. I don't know if that's a part of it. So they're so comfortable with it. However, on the other hand, my students who were used to being in the brick and mortar every day, when they have gotten online, they kind of just look like they're looking for me to be able to reach out and touch, give them those touches of reassurance or, the hug. So for some, it appears to work well. For others, it doesn't appear to be working so well.
Now, you had mentioned working with the parents, and definitely just to kind of backtrack real quick, you've been in the education field for numerous years. How hard and difficult is that when you have, let's just say, you see the potential in certain kids, you're working with them, but the parents are not cooperative. The parents are kind of like, I'm doing my own thing. Of course, there's always, the good stories, which we're happy to share. But what about the ones where you're like, my God, let's pray for this family,
Well, and that's exactly what I do. Let's pray for this family. And realistically, we have to respect that you cannot change a person's life overnight. Parents were not used to being the child's primary teacher. So to me, it's unfair to say, okay, well, now that they're virtual, you have to be their real support. You have to be the teacher. We can't reasonably expect that. Some parents will be more engaged than others. Mm-hmm. And I just respect where they are. And I just work with my parents and hope to build capacity to where, because I tell them, we never know what we're going to face in the future. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is where we are. However, let's try to grow from this. Mm-hmm. In the event that we hope it doesn't become anything permanent, because I don't think it's fair to force everything down everybody's throat. Okay. However, we can make this work the best that we can for the time that we're doing it. And again, it's going to work differently for everybody. Everybody's not the same. And as educators, we have to respect that. And that's where I am.
Okay.
Are you being like, and I'm sure you have limited time when you're doing these Zooms, right?
Yes.
It's not a full day. And
Well,
then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I guess, can you walk us through a typical day for you?
Me, and again, because I'm teaching students on the spectrum, so my schedule will be a little different from, say, the general ed population. And again, I do spend, say, 4 hours a day online with my student, doing each of the subject areas, including exercise. We do have a portion where we exercise, but I build in a lot of breaks because being online, even as an adult, is very tiring. And when you think of the student's attention span, I have to respect that. But not only the student, even for some adults, it's a challenge. So we have a lot of built-in breaks. And I allow the students, when you're tired and you need a break, you just let me know that you need a break.
Wow.
They'll take a break and they'll log right back on. So I'm very proud of my students. They have done amazingly well.
Wow.
Right. It is a wow factor because this is difficult. This is very difficult for the students first, and then even for the educators. It's a difficult time.
So I've always heard about people talking about, just online school. I mean, online schooling has been around for a minute now. But of course, now you even have the younger ones, engaged in it. And I hear some people saying, well, this is a good thing for them because this is where the world's going to. Everything's going to be 100% online these days. And, and it's about time that they kind of ramp it up. Do you feel that's a fair statement, or?
To say that this is where we're going?
Yeah, reference to the future, and we just need to ramp it up full gear, put those.
I think it's so unfair to the generation today because if we think back the way that we were educated, we were not educated like that. So why are we trying to force that on today's society, the kids? I don't think it's fair.
But not even that, but I could understand, and not promoting it or, swaying either way, but I could understand where they're coming from, but you would still need a slow process to be able to introduce and, again, see what other support systems you would need. And I know no one asked for this, people really did have to make like split second decisions regarding how we were going to get taught. And yeah, it had to look different in every area, and you can't make everyone happy, and that's the crazy part about it. Again, you're looking at the interruption in people's homes. You have teachers and kids and videos and this, and while the parents have to be home and they're doing their Zoom meetings, and again, you're talking about immediately breaking household routines and then breaking the educational routine and forgetting about the mental and emotional health of the kids and the family unit. No one had time to adjust to any of that. These parents are struggling with some serious mental health issues right now.
Yeah.
And they still have to deal with this. And again, like, I'm glad you're here as a teacher because we don't even get to see none of the part of what you go through at all.
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, I'm an empty nester, so I don't have, the issue with educating my own kids while I'm teaching. So I'm not dealing with that. So that must be difficult because think of the educators who have their own kids. They have to make sure they're, receiving instruction, they're supporting them at the same time. So I'm just really crossing my fingers that this is not just the complete wave of the future.
Right.
My experience has shown me that there's always exceptions.
Of course.
And like even now in Georgia, no, I'm not in the brick and mortar building. Some of the districts around me, they are at school. So it just depends.
So taking a look at, the brick and mortar school, your traditional classroom setting where the kids are going in, even if it's a special education class or just whatever, gifted, at the end of the day, the traditional brick and mortar. When you think about that and where we're going as a society, I read a article talking about the school taking down the analog clocks because the students just didn't know how to read it. It's funny because in the school system, my daughter's a senior. I taught her how to write cursive. The school did not teach her how to write cursive, and she was going to white schools. Are we taking the stuff that we were taught in school and saying, you know what, this is the parent's job now to teach instead of what the teacher is doing? Like, is there a reasoning behind this madness? I call it madness because literally even the Common Core math, you'll take, hey, 2 divided into 24. Well, for us, that's something so simple, but now they have this crazy, wacky nunu math, and you're like, I'm over this. So like, how is it on us, because the schools are just not teaching it anymore?
Well, you have to remember, as a Black American, most of the rules, just in society in general, we don't make them. We just have to go along to get along.
Sure.
So with that being said, we're just going along with whatever they tell us that we have to do. So as an educator and as a parent, you don't have a say in the matter. But I always tell parents, if you know better, please try to do better, because at the end of the day, the child is yours.
But
Sure.
wait, okay, so saying that the parents don't have a say. So I want to challenge that. What about like from my understanding, it's the parents that really run the schools, if they were involved in running the schools. Do they have a voice then?
So when you say the school, you're talking about a specific school building.
Okay.
It might be school.
Okay, I'm thinking.
You're talking about a system.
I'm thinking like this. You're talking like.
Exactly. The big picture is different.
Okay.
Got it. Wow.
Okay. Wow. I didn't even think about
Again, like I'm like this. She's like, no. I need you to think like that.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we're dealing with is very systemic. When you go to challenge a system, see just how long you'll last.
Can I just say that here's my like little analogy for that. With the whole system, it is literally a chess game, and you have a chessboard. You can go out and buy any new chess game. Some of them come regular pieces, different colors. Some of them come in shot glasses. You can change the pieces, but we're not able to change the actual system, the chessboard. Because if you change the chessboard, it's no longer chess, right? That's the way I feel about the system.
It's funny you say that, because I always tell people, especially when I talk to the youth, if you realize that the system is not meant for you and you end up learning the ways around it, then you'll be able to succeed. You have to kind of find the loopholes and realize. Go ahead.
But how do you succeed in a system that was built to make sure you didn't? Because the system is always there.
Well, and I wish I had.
Am I thinking grim?
Well, no. When you're talking, what came to my mind, and my mother always throws it at me. She uses the Nation of Islam as an example. They have their own schools, and in their schools, the kids are learning how to read the analog clocks. They know how to write cursive. That is the number one way to write. All these things that we are saying, well, man, why is not little Leroy up the street not learning it? They do. So is there a way of creating our own so that we can then implement these things, or maybe having after school programs where us, the older ones and our elders can teach,
so
kind of, I guess.
Okay, so they started taking things out of the school, and even as far as like after school programs, and we talked about this off camera, season in facilitating evidence-based, research-based, support programs, but they're still very specific in what they want our kids
Mhm.
to learn.
Right.
So it goes back to exactly what you're saying, that whole bigger system. You have funders that put very specific guidelines and
Yes.
compliances and
Yes.
certain deliverables that you have to hit in certain demographics and age groups and language. And you get funded to do that and don't go outside of that. And all those programs are funded for like the drug and alcohol, abstinence based stuff like that.
So Miss Kathy, question to go with that. How does a teacher, and maybe you can even think about, maybe yourself or your peers that you work with. So if you go into the building and like, man, this curriculum is for the birds. Like we should be learning this, and that, but we're learning this instead. How does a teacher say, you know what? Let's go off script for a second. Like, does that happen? Have you ever seen that? Like, what is that inner feeling of when you know that the stuff that you're teaching you is not that substance that they need to survive, and get those good jobs? What does that teacher do?
The teacher who's really passionate about making sure the students are prepared for the real world, you try to combine the both, because you have a job to keep, you're under contract, but you also try to, intertwine some of that real life stuff that they're going to need.
Yep.
And again, some educators are more brave and daring than others.
Okay.
We must realize that. And we have to respect that. People have their bills to pay, their households,
Right.
So with that being said, it just depends on the educators. But I always try to build capacity with my parents, because the parents now, like you mentioned, at a school, they can run the school. Now you can, as a parent, in a large numbers, they got together and said, okay, this is what we want for our students.
Yep.
This is what we know that they need to be successful or to be better prepared. Then you can get change. But oftentimes in our community, the Black and brown communities, our parents are just not knowledgeable enough. And a lot of them they really trust the schools, or they're so busy trying to survive.
Yeah.
When you're in survival mode and you're not living a life where you're thriving, your whole, lens that you're looking through is so different from somebody like us who we're surviving, we're doing okay.
Right. They're just happy their kids are going to school and getting education, because that means that they're not out on the street. Not meaning that even not being in school isn't always safe either. And we know that as well. Mm-hmm. Like my suggestion, and I'm like the very out of the box, innovative type person. I would say that if you look at just the three of us and you put together all the years and experience that we each have in education and our specialties, we can write our own programs and we could write our own curriculums. Mm-hmm. Therefore, even like when they were talking about, we have charter schools and stuff like that. But again, we could introduce our own material to our kids.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean,
is it frozen again?
I can hear you fine. You're moving a little slow on the video.
I can hear you.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Okay, wait, am I frozen?
You was moving in slow motion, but it's okay.
Okay. Did anyone hear my tantrum I went on?
Yes, we heard you. Yes. And that makes perfect sense, and it would be so ideal. But I will tell you, being in the metro area, the times that I wanted to do something as a group with some colleagues, it's actually very hard to get individuals to say, hey, let's do this. So because it takes sacrifice from your personal time outside of work.
Let me tell you this. I'm in the middle of writing curriculums and trainings and workshop. I have nothing but time. It's so if you want to get together and you want to do something, let's do something. I'm already in the process. I want to make sure that regardless of what happens in the future, that we are able to play a part in how that looks for us.
Well, I was going to ask Miss Kathy in a general sense. So let's just say right now, voting time comes, you might be talking to your peers over some coffee, like, yeah, the system needs to change, and whatever have you. And then when you say you thought of something, you're like, hey, we need to change way thing. Let's do something after school. Let's maybe dedicate a Sunday for 2 hours to do this and this. When you have that pushback from others and say, you know what, my schedule ain't looking too good, or maybe I got that trip to go on. I mean, for me, when I hear that, it's kind of like a slap in the face, because on one end, it's like, okay, I'm promoting, we need a change, we need a difference. But in the same breath, it's like, girl, I got stuff to do. And it's like, does that get you angry, or do you just kind of like over it already? Or how does that make you feel?
Yes. I will tell you, after so many years, I'm so over it. I have heard it for so long. I am over it. So again, even though my impact is small because I'm at a building, but anybody who I come in contact with, I just try to impart knowledge and definitely build capacity. Because I tell them all the time, whether you're young or old, knowledge is power. The more you learn, the more you can earn, the more you know, the more you will grow. But again, we have to I'll continue to fight, because it's so much. I mean, if I had a cup, it would probably have a few drops of the knowledge base that a lot of our parents possess. I shake my head day after day. They have no idea.
No, it's interesting that you said that. I remember facilitating some teens. Whenever I do talk to the youth, it's like that teen group, like between maybe 14 to 18-ish or whatever. And I remember reading an article, and I was letting them know that it said like the average African American cannot even read past the 3rd grade level. And I'm talking about in like the poor metropolitan areas. And this was of Florida. Now, I don't know of other states, but that was heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
If I'm giving materials to the youth, and I'm like, okay, well, I know I can't per se touch the parent, but bring that material home and leave it on the table. So, when grandma's cooking or whatever the case may be, she'll say, hey, what's this? But at the same time, that information it can't even connect, because at the same time it's over. And it's, you feel like you're kind of like blocking a wall. It's like a wall that you just can't tear down.
But it's true, though. Even look at the way, like within the schools, how they give information. They know their community, regardless of whatever you do. Know your audience, right? So you know the community, you know the parents, you know what that looks like. But you're given information in the longest form with the $1 million words, knowing that when those kids bring that information home, that the parents can't understand.
Right.
It's a frustration. They don't, it's not just the kids that you're teaching, it's the educational system, a system, which a system should be holistic.
Yes.
Meaning you're using the community, the mentors, you're using every portion of where you're at to making sure that these kids and those parents are able to have a thriving chance and be able to succeed in and outside of the community.
Yes.
To add to what you said, we had a comment for Cash Money. It says, I wish school choice meant we can get federal dollars to fund some homeschool communities where we have more control.
Okay, I know I'm talking a lot. I'm so sorry.
Great dialogue.
But okay, for that, I think we need to be able to start to control how those federal dollars look. They can put out any funding source they want. We don't have to apply for it, which means that they can't disseminate that money, which means that they have to go back and revamp what that looks like and then put it back out into the community. I'm really we have a lot more power than maybe we think we
Well,
do.
I know in the state of Florida, like I said, we're all in 3 different states. Miss Kathy in New York, and I'm in Florida. And one thing I learned about the state of Florida, like I said, and I can't speak for other states, but once the funding goes out, if it's not used, it gets pulled back, and there is no funding. It's done. I remember during the Obama administration, when he was looking at the educational system, he said, wait a second, the schools that are in the impoverished neighborhoods, they don't have the resources, the program for the free food, you know, they're not having enough food. You know, these things are missing. So he puts all the money in the impoverished schools. Trump gets elected. Actually, they froze the assets. They froze money. So as soon as the election time took place, they were like, well, we don't know who's going to win. So let's just see. Now Trump is in office. They take the money and they say, we're putting it into all the good schools. So it's like, wait a second, the good schools who have the, you know, and the zip codes, and they already have the funding because the parents are supporting and giving donations in these things. Why are you adding more to these schools if they already have it, and you're depleting from the poor schools? Like, I don't know if that's the same with you two in reference to how the money is put out there. Because if you don't use the funds, it's taken away.
Yeah.
Right. However, you do realize that even if the funding is lost, there's always another funding source that comes out that pretty much mimics that last one. That's what I'm.
Yuck, I don't know about.
Maybe not in every sector, every state, every abstinence education now is sexual risk avoidance.
Okay. Section. So they changed the name.
You change the name, you tweak it. I worked at a place where I wrote RFAs.
Okay.
So I know somewhat of the process. Things get, if we are able to, again, think about just us in the room right now. We know how it works. We just need to come together. We're begging for things for our kids, but we're begging for things from systems, again, that we already know don't want to give it to us.
Okay. And that's one great takeaway the listeners need to use. Think of the system, you know, because a lot of times you'll say, okay, we can change this. But when you really start going up against a system that is not designed for you to succeed, you see just how long you will last. And I've been in this thing called education for a long time, seeing a lot of people come and going a lot, and it's really sad, people. It is just, again, I shake my head so frequently because I'm near retirement and I'm singing the same song.
Yeah,
it's sad.
Wow. So just to put a break right on the conversation we're having now, I want to talk about safety. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about school safety, because more and more you hear about the school shootings and you hear about this and someone brought a gun and Now, growing up, I'm originally from New York, and growing up, when, you know, the homeboy up the street brought his weapon in, it was known. You already knew to kind of move to the side because he was coming to do him. And, you know, you kind of kept it to yourself, and that was it. We grew up with metal detectors in our school. You know, it was a part of just growing up. So when I get older and I move to the South and I see that, you know, they don't have metal detectors in the school, you know, like this is all a new system for them, you know, and you hear about this gun violence and I'm like, wait, it happened every day on my block. But, you know, now you hear about it on a national level and somebody did a mass shooting and everything. What are the protocols they have in store for the teachers in reference to these horrendous things that happen, you know, when you send your kids to school? You know, how do you guys keep safe?
In my particular building, we do have metal detectors because I am at the middle school level now. So we do. And each day the students are supposed to go through them. You know, their book bags are supposed to be checked. But of course, there's always there's always ways around it. You know, I'm sure if students want to bring weapons, you know, even you can have students who sneak down a stairwell. The kid left it outside. You know, in a bush, they open the door. There are always ways around it. So there's no foolproof way, if you will, but there are some safety, protocols. We do have safety drills in case of an emergency. But the main thing when it comes to weapons like that, we rely on students. If you see something, say something.
Okay.
And there are there are still the good ones out there who know that is wrong. And that is definitely a danger if a student has a weapon. And they will tell, thankfully.
Do you see, I mean, of course, maybe probably the answer is yes. Of course, now we have social media and the cell phones and these different things. And you hear more and more about bullying. Like I said, growing up in the 80s and 90s, when I was in New York, it was a common thing. Like if it didn't happen, that might have been an awkward day, but now it's very, very a touchy subject. There's zero tolerance a lot of schools have for the bullying. But do you see a lot of people, the kids with their cell phones, and they're sending, these messages, and they're bullying through the texting, and they're doing all these other things, compared to how we grew up, you're just kind of right at it. Are you thinking that?
It does happen. I would think for me, I'm kind of lucky because I'm dealing with students on the spectrum. So they operate completely different. They're the sweetest kids. But of course, in the school, they do have the bullying and the phones. I think that's a large part of it because during the school day, they send very mean things, and kids can be really cruel. I don't know where they learned this from at a young age. They can be so mean and cruel to each other. Right. Maybe I'm just behind, times, but they can be very mean to each other. So I do see it. And the schools, a lot of them, I can only speak for the schools that I work up. They do address it, to the best of their ability. Of course, nobody's going to always be happy, but they do address the bullying.
Okay, so with the wait, comment first. Okay, yeah. So Specs, he said hello. Specs is on. Hey, Rosie, Cash, Campbell. All right, so Liz said earlier, Ty mentioned that they are specific about what they want our kids to learn. They also are specific about what they don't want our kids to learn, which is also very, very true. Like you were saying earlier, Kia, like even with the cursive writing and stuff like that, the things that they took out of our schools. Specs Monroe, DC was crazy in the 80s, 600 shooting death a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cities are bad.
600. Wow.
600. And then Liz said, failure to adapt and change leads to extinction. That's why schools are still, why are schools still following a schedule and academic calendar that revolves around housewives' schedules?
Wow, that's a great question.
Housewives.
Okay. That's a great question, though. Wow.
Yes. That's interesting. And again, that goes back to the system because we don't make the calendars. We don't set the calendars. The things, the curriculums, we do not set them. Educators, we just follow. We are told what we need to teach and do, and that is what we do. And you mentioned you get funding. If you want to keep your cash dollars, your flowing, you need to stay within the realm of, what the guidelines that they've set for you.
Your compliancy. Yep.
When you said that we just follow, you think about the educational system and who runs it, on a federal level. You got Betsy Evil DeVos out there, with her witch brew, just making laws and policies, and she has no idea. Probably doesn't even know how to add. I think she came from, she comes from money, so it's kind of, handed to her. But it's like we have people in these positions who don't know anything about the subjects. And then, like you said, as educators, you're just following, like, okay, well, this is the new rule, so let's go ahead and follow. How does the teachers union affect all this? So, of course, the union, for those who don't know, is supposed to help, support, advocate on behalf of the teachers. But when you have different things that you say, hey, this is just not right. Let's take something as simple as penmanship. hey, we need to teach our kids in this, but then you see in every school it's taken out of, unless you're in that Beverly Hill type of area. What do they say? What do they do?
With me being a part of the union, they say nothing.
Oh,
They say nothing. I have not heard it addressed. The only thing that I hear being addressed, and it is not something that the union that we really pound. I'll go back to you mentioning that the reading level for a lot of students is significantly below level.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think every union should fight for, because again, readers are leaders. Good readers are the leaders. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to fight for anything, these kids we need to go back to be able to read. Every school system district needs a program where they can ensure that kids who have deficits, you can bring them up. You can improve students' reading with the correct, remediation. It can be done. So the penmanship, that's like something that's out the window, out the door. I don't hear it. Even when I was at the elementary level, you didn't hear anybody complain about it. Middle school, you definitely don't. In high school. So that's something that they've truly just forgotten. And I will tell you, being at the middle school, I've been there for some years now. They don't know how to begin to write in cursive.
Wow.
They don't even know what it is.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. I'm reading the last comment from Melissa. It says teachers have zero support. And I wanted to make this clear to anyone who's listening, like I said, now and later. I think, of course, we think about the doctors and the nurses who are our frontline workers, but I think teachers also are our frontline workers. It's interesting. I have children of my own. And I promise you, I have zero patience. The little one now, my 3-year-old, she has me going. She's teaching me how to have patience. But I remember, the kids would come, can you help me? I'd be like, I don't know this stuff, and just walking away. I mean, I grew up and I went to an alternative high school. I ended up doing my GED, but having that fluctuation of having other alternatives or co-op where you're working and going to school, and just things shouldn't be the same. Just addressing to what Liz Carter mentioned in reference to this set little schedule. I mean, there are schools now that you could kind of flex and do different things, but the majority and the bulk, it has to kind of go with times. And like she said, teachers don't have the support. We need to support our teachers. And I also think that teachers should be vetted as well. I have some horror stories. I mean, I know growing up, the teachers could hit you. My mother didn't play those games. But just in general, it was just, some people were traumatized by their teachers and their rulers, but then again, it's like, well, maybe a teacher do need to hit one of these kids up with a ruler. It's like a back and forth.
But you want to know what? It's so true about the teachers needing support. Like me going in and teaching programs, in classrooms that were already set up. I would see kids that didn't speak any English at all. And then you would have the bilingual kids that would have to help them. So you have two people missing out on education. Yeah. And then you had teachers that were set up with a lot of kids that had different abilities, and those teachers didn't have the proper training to deal with.
Wow.
And the teacher student ratio, you're talking about, it went from maybe like a 1 to 10 or to 15 to now a student teacher ratio could be like 1 to 30 something.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So you got one teacher with about 30 to 32 kids, and each of them have different things that they're dealing with, mental issues, some, issues at home, it's hard. And then the teachers are being, am I wrong? And then the teachers are also being looked at and graded on how they deal with those kids. Well, you didn't teach me how to deal with the kid that was on the spectrum. And I have 5 of them, on top of the fact that some take their medication, some don't. It's a lot. So that support goes way out what we really fathom. And again, I can only speak on this because I've been in there with the teachers for years. I see what you guys go through.
Let's go to some other comments right here. I could hit this one real quick. So Cash Money says Betsy DeVoe's interest in education is business related. Education is big business. If you can privatize education, companies could possibly get billion-dollar contracts.
Yes.
Wow.
That is so true.
Wow.
Education, just like the prison system, the privatization. So that has had a adverse impact in a lot of ways on education.
Can we piggyback on that and just wait on the other comments? But with the finances and education, can you touch base on the differences in how brown and black and brown kids get educated versus their counterparts? What's the difference in that?
Another hour conversation time.
Yeah, because the money looks different in each school system.
Yeah.
Well, in my particular system, because you have, it's one system, but one side of town, of course, based upon the zip code, they're more affluent, the parents, and then the other side, of course, the socioeconomic, difference is definitely obvious. However, I will tell you that supposedly the money is distributed equitably. That is what we're told. And but however, because I've worked on both sides, of the city, I will tell you on the side where the more affluent parents are, they are more supportive with the kids. And then when I come to our side where we're surviving, a lot of us, it looks very different. So the money, according to what we're told, is supposed to be the same. This is in the regular public. I'm not talking about the privatization because that's when you talk about charter. But just in the public, it varies just from where you live. And a lot of that has to do with the family, parental engagement also, because they get funding not only from the district, but within the school itself, the parents get together and provide funds for the school as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Teachers need to have training for programs. The parents provide it. They pay for it. So it looks very different in that aspect also. So right there, we can't fault the system because now your parents are digging into their pockets and putting more money into the particular school in their neighborhood just to help build capacity, to give the teachers more support. Wow. As opposed to the other side of town. Okay, well, parents, they barely have enough money to,
Well, let me ask you this question. So I remember, and a lot of parents do it. I remember, my kids, they were entering high school and I'm like, wait a second, I can't have my kids going to high school, and they're not getting everything, out of it. And I remember moving to a really, really nice neighborhood. And within saying that, I remember talking to someone who worked for the school. And they said they actually have people follow the students home to make sure that they live in that area. And I'm like, what? They follow the kids home? Because you have the different people coming from different neighborhoods trying to get their kids in better schools.
Yes.
We have the one lady who played, and please help me with her name, played on Full House. She got 2 months in federal prison for, getting her daughter in college and everything. But then there was another woman on the other end who tried to go ahead and get her babies into good schools, and she got 5 years. So definitely it looks much, much different. Do you experience that when you see the parents, trying to use different zip codes, trying to get into different schools and these things like that?
Yes. In fact, in my particular district, the boundaries and the communities were rewritten. My particular area was going through a lot of gentrification. So of course, the demographics were changing. So to stop that, the boundaries were redrawn.
Wow.
And of course, now they're supposed to have school choice within the district. However, certain schools never have space for students outside of that particular, district, the way the boundaries are drawn, to get in, even if the parent provided their own transportation. These particular schools, they never have space for any outside kids to get into those schools.
Wow.
So, that's another thing to me is controversial. It's also litigious, but again, until our parents really address these issues. But then again, we can also go back and say, why can't our schools and our communities look the same?
Of course.
We have to start building capacity in our own communities and stop running to other people to save us, just to do it. Again, over on both sides of town, the teachers, we work equally as hard, sometimes harder probably in, the lower socioeconomic areas.
Yes.
Why can't our schools look the same, provide the same level of knowledge base? So again, we're going to have to start building capacity within our own communities, with our own parents, because again, we can't always look for somebody else to save us.
Before we get into the comments, I just wanted to say, when people make that statement there, well, why can't we just build our own? And this is from schools to, your grocery store or whatever. I think for me, in my opinion, it has to do with self-love. And I say that because I remember talking to a student one time, and I was giving them all this information, getting them ready for a job interview. And the aunt came up to where I was at and about to curse. Well, actually, she did curse me out. And I remember I had some mace next to me because I was pregnant at the time. So I was like, if she tries to do something, mace her. So with saying that, it's crazy because the aunt did not care for her to get a job. Like, no, this is what she's going to be doing. She's going to be slanging and banging. You need to shut up and mind your business. Blah, 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 blah. And when I seen the aunt who was her guardian say these things to me, and just the embarrassment on that young girl's face, I knew that since the aunt who's raising her had so much self-hate for herself, she couldn't care about any type of new curriculum, new path, new anything. Give me my money, give me what I need, and that's it. I'm done. And she could go to school, she could drop out, I don't care, but still give me my money. And I think if you have a lot of that mindset, plus if you also have people who are just, they want to survive, but they got 2-3 jobs, I don't have the time, it's hard for you to build. And especially if one of you ladies you had little kids or middle school kids, and you hit the lotto for $1 million, would you still live in a poor neighborhood, or would you pick up and say, hey, let me go over here? I mean, because even though you want to rebuild your own neighborhood, you don't want to get robbed neither, because everybody knows, oh, she got that $1 million.
Right.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead. If you could read the comments, Ty.
Where am I starting from? We got a lot of them. There we go. We need more Black teachers as well as Black men. It seems there has been a targeted effort to remove Black people from that industry for monetary reasons. Does Kathy have thoughts on that? Great question.
Oh, okay. I will tell you, was that Cash Money?
Yes.
Okay, Cash. Thank you for joining. In my particular district, though, we have many, many Black teachers. I am in an urban setting. Many are Black. Of course, we have more Black women than men. Oftentimes, our Black men have challenges. They'll come into the system, but they don't stay. And it's not just for the money, because you can earn a decent salary. You're not going to get rich, but you can earn a livable salary. However, a lot of the Black men I notice have the problem of dealing with the system, in that a lot of the men are disciplinarians, especially in my urban setting for the students. Okay. They want to be disciplinarians, and their tolerance for a lot of the disrespect or challenges, as a man that they deal with, they just can't deal with it. So as a result, either they'll get in trouble, lose their job because they want to lay hands on a student, or it's just a frustration. So I think that's what keep a lot of our Black men out of it, because honestly, the pay is not worth your freedom, because you touch a child, you can end up in jail. So that is not worth it. So that keeps a lot of our Black men out. Other than that factor, I think a lot of our men would be into this profession, but it's so tough being a Black man, and the kids they can be, not all, very challenging, with the talking back, the disrespect, you can even get hit, all kinds of difficult things to deal with as a teacher. And again, it is not worth your freedom.
I say anybody who teaches kids, they got all types of power and patience, and we love you, because I don't know.
Patience.
There's you really do need a lot of patience. They
Oh,
will try you. But you also have the teachers that the kids know is authentic.
Oh yeah.
And they're like the leaders also, so they help like govern the rest of the class for you. They know who they like and they know who's there for them and who's not. Those kids are, they're smart. They got a lot of street smart as well.
They do.
But them kids are, they will challenge you.
But as a black man, and I tell my
Yeah.
colleagues, it's not worth your freedom, because
Yeah.
I've observed on many occasions, these boys, running up in a man's face, and at that point, a man is ready to knock him down. And I'm feeling the man, but I'm like, you know what, brother, is not worth your freedom. Go,
Yeah.
go, just let it go.
And the way these kids are coming out, these kids are being born 6 feet tall. You go into these middle schools, sometimes you don't know who's the teachers and who's the students. Like, they look grown.
I mean, and then once again, I say it every episode, I say it off camera, on camera, like the conversations that we could touch upon, it goes past the time frame, because when you talk about safety of the teachers, then you're like, well, do we need to have the community officers come in? But then you have the community officers may overstep their boundaries, and then they're doing something, because a lot of kids, they back talk. I mean, they do it to their parents, they do it to their grandmas, they're going to do it to the police officer. And guess what? That ego chip on that police officer is like, wait a second, what did you say? I said, sit down. No, I'm leaving. I'm going. And now you have a tussle. So it's a double-edged sword once again, because we need the teachers to be safe. There's no reason why somebody's jumping up in your face, but at the same time, the community officer may overstep his boundaries.
Right, exactly. It's a all around. It's a struggle in the schools, and it's having a greater adverse impact on our communities, black and brown, especially the black ones, than it is on any other community.
You want to go to the rest of the comments before I ask my next question, Ty?
Okay, so let's see.
I think Liz was next. Yeah.
All right. In socioeconomically challenged communities, when buses are dropping middle and high school students off at 12:30 every Wednesday, who are they going home to?
12:30?
That's here in Central Florida. I don't know how it is.
Okay, they must be going to school for half of the day.
Every Wednesday there's half day.
Oh, see, they don't do that here, but that is interesting. I wonder, who are they going home to?
I know a couple of them getting pregnant, because I ran into a couple of them. I'm like, where was your parent?
So that would be something that the parents need to address, because now you have students who are unsupervised.
Yep.
For a large part of the day. So the parents, and they not address it at the school level, but at the board level. Okay, if school for the teachers is ending for half a day because they need to plan or whatever, okay, now what do we have to do, for the kids to do for the rest of the day? There has to be some accountability.
I'm glad you stated at the board level. So can you let us know what parents can do, and like who they should address about what issues they may be having within the system itself, or their little system, in their
PTA membership or something? Or
well, the PTA is school level. However, every district has board meetings.
Okay.
Every month, and it is advertised, it's publicized when the board meetings take place. They have board meetings for financing. They have board meetings for public comments. And I've attended board meetings, and I can tell you that oftentimes there are very few parents there. But that is where parents can actually be heard when they really want to get their point across about whatever the concerns are. They need to go beyond the particular school and show up at these board meetings on a continuous basis. Okay. If it's something that's near and dear to them and they feel strongly about, they need to keep bringing up the same issue. They can have data to support, their stance or their position on why this is important for students. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about the students. Why is this issue important for our students? But they need to show up at these board meetings. And again, it's your time. It's a sacrifice of your time to attend, but the squeaky wheel, gets the oil. We have to show up and speak out on things and not just show up to the school, to fuss the principal out, to fuss the teachers out.
Right.
Get down to the board where they actually make the decisions.
So a couple of comments here. We have Melissa say a white school, they held a dinner, $250 a plate for a fundraiser. Wow.
And Melissa, she is so right.
Melissa about to spill the tea once you get through all right.
They do that.
Go into that dinner, sorry.
They do that. Exactly. As fundraisers for the school.
Wow.
She you want to let her spill the tea real quick?
Yeah, sure.
My kid's high school, 600 in envelope expected if you join a sport. And she did also say that they allowed yes, my son's school put all the deaf kids in his school so there would be no more space.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Not that anyone thought that anyone was fibbing, but to have someone on here that can say, yeah, they did that.
Yes.
Yeah. Just so you can't come over and be like, can I get a spot in your school?
Right. We have no space.
And but you know what? I think I've seen they had a hidden camera one time going to a school board meeting, and the parents were on these council people, and they were like, listen, I pay my money so that I don't have to see and I don't have to deal with X, Y, and Z. And it's crazy because you think about, you want education for everybody, right? You would think that, this is the America where everybody can get an equal opportunity and a fair shot, but no, you can't. I live in this neighborhood. I pay these taxes, and I don't want to see these kids. I don't want to take a chance on you bullying my son. I don't like this. Pull up your pants. You're too ethnic. You're too this. I mean, then you have the school officials. Can you change this hairstyle, please? It's not conducive to learning. What the hell does my hairstyle got to do with me learning?
Right. Exactly. The struggle continues.
This day and age, we still have to talk about our hair and our hairstyles.
They have to pass laws. In California, they pass laws that, you won't get in trouble. You won't get, fired off the job and, or, can't go to the school prom or something like that just because of your hair. Now, if you had something like carved in your head, like, F all people or something derogatory, I can understand that. But how is my braids bothering?
Braids, my twist, that wouldn't fly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
I can't. I just want to say to, because I don't know how long we're going to go, but thank you, Kathy, for everything. We see you teachers out there doing your thing. We see the parents doing y'all thing. We see the kids trying to adjust. We got to remember they are still kids.
They're still kids.
Take their cues from us. So when we're panicking as adults, and we have been, it's all been out in the open. We haven't kept any secrets as far as our arguments and where we stand. But we still have to remember that now we're putting that fear and that confusion on the kids, and then expecting them to adjust. We can't even adjust.
Jesus.
Yeah.
These are the expectations that we have on the kids. So we see y'all. You're doing a good job. I know it must not be easy, but just we will get it together.
And like I said, I praise you guys. You guys can handle some badass kids. Like, I'm like, wait, what in the world? Like, no, I just got to get to this one comment here. Melissa also says,
I told you.
They knocked an entire school down and rezoned a school here, so no busing in, whitewashing. Wow.
Yeah.
everything to share a seat with you.
She
Yeah.
and Melissa she don't care. She don't tell it.
But here's the thing. The question that I was going to ask before we end up wrapping everything is, now we're in times of civil unrest. Black Lives Matter. You hear about it all the time. Even if people don't really know the true origins of everything, it's that hashtag. It's the cool thing, the TikTok videos, the this. Are you hearing the kids? Are you hearing the staff mentioning it? Are you hearing anything about it in reference to people supporting or not? Or is it talked about in the school? And a caveat to that made me say, oh yeah, I have to do this about education. So the 1619 Project, basically, if anyone doesn't know, it aims to reframe the country's history on placing the consequences of slavery on the United States, and how it was all established based upon economical structure. Within saying that, New York City said, you know what, we're going to teach it in our schools. And Trump found out about it, and Trump was like, no, you're not. Any school that teaches anything about slavery on that capacity, we're defunding. And I was shocked. Like, wait a second, this is actual historical facts. How dare you say you're going to defund the school because you're teaching this? I mean, what happens on your end in reference to those type of matters? Are they talking about any type of civil injustices or those things?
To date, we've been out. See, we've been out of the building since March, and we have not re-entered. So I haven't really had any real personal dialogue with my colleagues. So
Okay.
the meetings that we're having now are strictly, how are we going to get through this day?
Okay.
So on that level, and I am in an urban area, there has not been any dialogue in that area as of yet.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Miss Kathy Green. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Somebody Liz says, thank you, teachers, praying for better pay for all teachers to match the challenges of a modern classroom. Thank you so much, because you guys are right there dealing with our badass kids. And
thank you, parents, for doing your part.
Yes.
Thank you, parents. We appreciate those parents who are engaged, can be engaged, who at least try. And parents have different levels of abilities. So we do appreciate our parents as well. And for those parents who are not as adept, we're always there to help bring you along, to make you better, okay?
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sure, if you like us, you share, and you like and subscribe to our page on YouTube, Mothers Unfiltered. Bye, guys.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.